Okay, folks, we're back. Joining us now, Congressman Doug Collins, Republican of Georgia, also the House Judiciary Committee ranking member. Congressman, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you, Brian? How's lovely North Georgia this morning?
It's great. We can't complain. We're I guess we're going to say we're glad you're up there in the battle, but we do feel for you, okay? We know where you're at. And, all right. So,
I appreciate it much.
So we'll send that to you from the 9th District. We know our time is short. We've got a whole list of things to do. I don't want to dwell too much on this, but actually a CNN, and I thought it was interesting that Nadler, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Monday you had just a joke of a afternoon with a former U.S. attorney and MSNBC contributor Joyce White Vance, and then CNN sent somebody, former Nixon White House counsel at CNN contributor John Dean, which we can't go into a lot of time on really the background on John Dean. What did they hope to advance, and what happened there Monday, not to put too much time on this subject?
Well, we had basically a return to the 70s show. We had the godfather of using government resources to influence political campaigns in John Dean. If anybody doesn't know who John Dean is, have a great morning going and looking up Watergate. You'll find out why he's disbarred and why he was a central figure in the Watergate scandal. And then you have basically the what I call the self-promotion tour for two commentators on TV. What we found out was nothing new. What we found out was, shockingly, they believed the president committed obstruction, and shockingly, at the end of the day, the hearing ended up with nothing except the Democrats saying the same thing they've been saying now for 6 weeks after the Mueller, or 7 weeks after the Mueller report, and that was that, we still got to investigate this because we don't like what Mueller said, and we're trying to make sure that we find a reason to impeach the president.
Well, we call this out here out here. We'll just say that we call it the pre impeachment inquiries, pre-hearings. Let me ask you this, and I don't know myself. Who actually has the authority to start impeachment inquiry hearings? And what I mean by that is Gerald Nadler is the ranking member, and he comes out and we're working through, and all the things he says concerning impeachment, but then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is adamant no. Who actually has the authority to start those impeachment inquiries?
The easiest way to say that is the majority itself. And so that would actually end up being Nancy Pelosi would be the one to actually give the green light to Gerald Nadler to begin to actually file the impeachment inquiry paperwork, and then what would subsequently be then possibly an impeachment resolution. So it starts with the majority in the House. It would all go through the Judiciary Committee, but that's from to a shortened down version, that's the basic version.
Do you feel Democrats on the committee are backing away from wanting Special Counsel Robert Mueller's testimony? Do you think they're backing away in concerns of what you and your colleagues, much like Congressman Jim Jordan, may ask Robert Mueller? And if you get him there, what are some of the things you would like to ask former Special Counsel Robert Mueller?
Well, I think this chairman is scared of Mueller coming because he knows Mueller will only testify to what he's already said. I mean, look, would it be a good day for trying to go through and rehash volume 1 and volume 2? No, I mean it's just another frustrating day for the president. And what they want to do is taint and tar the president, and especially going into the 2020 election. However, I think they're scared of having Mueller come, knowing they won't give anything new, but they're also scared, as you said, of me and others on the committee who are going to ask questions such as, why did you give hiring decisions to Weinstein, who is a known partisan Democrat, and he hired all these other Democrats on this panel? Why, were you asleep at the wheel? Were you just not doing what you were supposed to be doing? Then why did you take up parts of the dossier and exonerate those, but not take up the other parts of the dossier? Why did you not look at how this actually got started? Did you not recognize that Carter Page and George Papadopoulos were probably not the best people to actually be looking into, and probably not the most, even a basic, simple reading of the two of them realize that they're more fluff than substance? And, and you're actually going to base a counterintelligence investigation on these two? I mean, that's putting like a lot of stock in nothing. So I think what they don't want to have happen is again, they don't have anything out of the report. There's nothing else that they can really gain from that. They want to have investigations, but they don't have the power or authority or the resources to do the investigation. So I think it's a catch-22 for them. I mean, in my opinion, I'd like to see Mueller come in. I'd like to actually talk to the author of the report, not just see the report. I mean, there's a lot of discussion up here that people want to just move away and move on. That's just not happening because the Democrats are addicted to impeachment, and that's all that they can do. And the committee itself is about split 11, 12 to 12 on people who've actually said they want to see impeachment and those who are saying, well, we just need to continue to investigate.
All right, quickly, the House stepped up. House voted to enforce Barr and McGahn subpoenas yesterday. We would hope that the news would come out of the House that they were working on solutions with our border crisis and many other things. But what does this mean? Yesterday, stepped up to enforce Barr and McGahn subpoenas to testify before your committee.
It was a classic Macbeth, strutting and fretting their hour upon the stage and at the end signifying nothing. They gained no new powers yesterday. I just did an interview just a little bit earlier, and they kept saying, and it was a more liberal-leaning organization, and they actually said, they gained new powers yesterday. They gained nothing yesterday. They always had the authority to go to the BLAG, which is the Bipartisan Legal Action Group, Legal Affairs Group, to actually go to court to enforce subpoenas or to insert ourselves into other to other cases, that kind of thing. So the sad part about it is they gained no new authority. What they did do is they circumvented the American people's visibility into holding people in contempt for these not supplying with the subpoenas. So their moderate voters, moderate members such as Lucy McBath down in Georgia's 6th District or others, don't have to keep going to the floor looking, like radical impeachment folks and voting to have to vote for contempt, which is the proper way to go about this. They gained nothing yesterday except basically destroyed the institution going forward, because what they have said is we're just going to enforce subpoenas straight to the court without having to involve ourselves in any of the real work of accommodation and working with the branches to actually get their subpoenas enforced.
Highlight the agreement that we're hearing about between your committee, which Chairman Nadler, and the Department of Justice on documents that the Department of Justice is going to share with your committee concerning the report, what they like to call the underlying evidence. I'm sorry, I always love when they run that narrative, the underlying evidence. But give us an update on what those documents are that DOJ is going to share with your committee and what we're going to be hearing about through them.
Well, you're not going to hear a whole lot because there's nothing new in what they got. In fact, this week has been a cotton candy week for the chairman. And you know how cotton candy tastes good, looks good, it feels good, but doesn't fill you up? Well, there's nothing to it. And again, he's trying to spin something that really, if he had engaged in accommodation process 6-7 weeks earlier, he'd have had this information, which is just 302, the witness notes and stuff. He could have had this, several weeks ago, just like HIPSI has had. None of the stuff that has been made available to him was not already available to the House Intelligence Committee. So this is not something new. Again, they want it to be new because his investigation, he's done such a poor job at this whole thing that right now he's trying to say everything to save face in what he's doing. And frankly, it's pretty sad because you made a point. You want to talk about real problems that our committee could solve? Let's go to the border and solve the border issue. You want to talk about real things that this committee could solve? Let's talk about intellectual property theft and others from China. You want to talk about real things that this committee could solve? Let's not only talk about the border, but let's also talk about our need for agricultural workers and our H-2A and H-2B programs and our things that have legal immigration emphasis. And these are the kind of things that the president's wanted to talk about and others. But I have a chairman who is addicted to impeachment, and he can't get off of it.
Well, I call them the no solution Democrats, and that's just that they're not able to solve any problems, and it's the only thing they're going on. I want to switch gears. You released so many of the transcripts of the interviews or testimony that we were able to read. Strzok, Page, the list goes on. Bruce, Nellie Orr. But that being said, how are things moving, the best of what you know, how are things moving with our Attorney General William Barr on the other side, the actual investigation we feel needs to be going on? And just to add on to that, when do you think there seems to be a little delay in Inspector General Horowitz's report? So Can you shed a little light on that side, the investigation we're interested in?
Yeah, there's no really delay. I mean, the Inspector General is finishing up his report. I think we'll see that within the next, probably 3 to 4 weeks. I think a July probably time frame is a good one, and I know that's one of the reasons that the Democrats are so panicky, because they don't want to. They know that when that happens, the story gets changed. At least any questions are going to be able to be asked. And then you have the Durham investigation, which I would expect probably later in the fall, if anything. That would be the closest time there. Again, they're doing that investigation, and I think, look, there's a reason that Comey and McCabe and Baker and all these are running out and trying to rehabilitate their story and talk about how good they actually were, because I think some of these issues, when they start coming out, are not going to show them in the best light, and they're going to show the truth of what was actually going on in some very interesting discussions and atmospheres of how they got started in this investigation, coming off the Clinton mid-year investigation and running right into the investigations of the Russian interference, and again starting it off on very tenuous ground. So I think that's what you're seeing, and we'll see hopefully here in the next few weeks and few months about how that comes out. Congressman,
I got 4 minutes, and two things. I know your pro-life commitment, and so let me ask you this. What are you thinking when you're hearing Democrat presidential candidates out there on the stump, and now Joe Biden flip-flopping, and all of them saying they would end the Hyde Amendment, but not really saying what that means? That means asking taxpayers to pay for abortions. What say you on that when you're hearing that out there on the stump, that the Democrats want the Hyde Amendment gone, and they want the American people to take their tax money and pay for the abortions?
Well, again, it shows you how radical the Democratic Party has come on the issue of life. I mean, it seems like they want to try and care about everything except, children in the womb. And, that's, again, it's sort of sad. I mean, for somebody like Joe Biden to have to change a stance that he's held for 30 or 40 years, that he holds as a, religious belief, from his Catholic background, to actually say that, now we won't, to use taxpayer money to murder babies. I mean, it's just that just shows you where they're at this point. And when the litmus test is coming out that they're trying to run anybody with a pro-life stance out of the Democratic Party, I think it just shows you they have a culture of death, not a culture of life. And it's just, again, it saddens. I think the best part about it is, I can rant and rave all I want, but it just basically, at the end of the day, it just saddens me to think that this is, how they view life.
Well, I understand that through polling that I don't always trust, but even people that identify as pro-choice, many say, but don't use my tax money to pay the bill. So that's interesting. One thing I want you to share with our viewers this morning, the president is going to kick off his campaign, his re-election campaign, next Tuesday night. As far as the House is concerned, out here, are we getting ready to hear something, a unified message from the House of Representatives on the Republican side about trying to regain the majority in the House? Are we getting ready to really hear some exciting election news from the Republican Congressional Committee on re-election there as far as the House is concerned?
Well, we've already started doing that. Our main goal is to retake the House and have the president reelected and maintain our majorities in the Senate. And we're doing that already. We've already started hitting, from our campaign committees and others, we've already started hitting these new freshman Democrats on the fact that they're now taking votes that are, especially in districts like the 6th District of Georgia with Lucy McBath, and over in South Carolina, the Cunningham District and others. We're saying, look, you're telling your people one thing back home, but yet you're coming up to D.C. and you're voting a really radical, left agenda. And we're already starting holding them accountable to that. So we're continuing that process. We're highlighting every chance we get. When I'm not having to fight off the impeachment craze up here, is we're showing that there are differences, that we have a process for the border that needs to be worked on. We have a process that the economy is at its highest levels ever, our trade, and we need to get done. And these are the kind of things that we're going to be emphasizing as we go into the next election cycle. And the biggest thing is people need to turn out. If they want a more dominant socialist more agenda or more democratically controlled government, then they stay at home and let Democrats, get elected or keep the House. If they don't want that, if they want more freedom, they want more tax money in their pocket, they want their economy to still continue to do well. If they don't want to have this kind of just crazed impeachment talk all the time, then people need to get out. They need to quit worrying about, look, there's not a Democrat that's going to be on the ticket that is 5%, even remotely 5% close to being what a 95% Republican would be, and that's the issue at this point. And if Republicans don't get that, then we're not going to be in a good position.
Congressman, I appreciate you always coming on the show and sharing this insight with our viewers. Thank you. Have a nice day, and we wish you well.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, we're gonna take just a 15-second card break to cut this recording, and we'll be right back. So, Josh, give us that 15-second break.